Hello everyone, and welcome to my Wrath of the Lich King Eternal Farming Guide. In this guide, I'll share all the spawns that I use to farm each individual Eternal. I've also added a timeline, so you can easily skip to the one that you're looking for. Anyway, enjoy the video. So the first Eternal that I'm going to cover is the Eternal Fire, or well, the Crystallized Fire farming. At low level, you can start farming these at the northern part of Berian Thunder. You can start farming these at around level 68. When you reach a higher level, then you can also start farming Eternal Fire in the Storm Peaks. There's two really good locations for farming Eternal Fire. The first one I use right here, but at the northern part there was also a cave. In the cave there's a lot of different creatures that you can kill, and also a high chance of dropping Crystallized Fire. This spot is definitely my favorite one. This is definitely the location that I prefer the most. But if all the spots that I've showed you so far is already crowded, then you could always hit to Wintergrasp. At the southeastern part of Wintergrasp, there's a huge area with fire elementals. These also has a high chance of dropping the Crystallized Fire. And if you have mining, make sure to track nodes, because there's a lot of different veins at this location. Next up is Eternal Water, and in Wrath of the Lich King, there are so many different locations, even at low level, to start farming these. I usually come to Howling Fjord around level 68, and I stay here all the way up to 72. If you move more north in Howling Fjord, there's even another location to continue your farm, so if the first spot is already crowded, just move here. Another amazing low level spot, which is in Berian Thunder, takes place right here. So if you start questing here instead of Howling Fjord, you can even farm Eternal Water. The drop chance for Crystallized Water is not that high at lower level monsters. You have to get to some higher level ones at around level 78, 79 or 80 before you will get a high chance. When you reach level 72 or higher, then you could always swap to Dragonblight. Up here at the north, you can farm Crystallized Water. So right now you have had enough spots from around level 68 and all the way up to around level 76. So that's a lot of levels where you have the opportunity to farm Eternal Water. There's yet another farming location in Dragonblight, and this one I honestly prefer to use compared to the other one, because here I mainly just farm these to grind Crystallized Water. At the other location, there's other monsters that I have to take care of in order to farm Crystallized Water, and those monsters doesn't have a chance to drop the Crystallized Water. For the remaining water spots, I'm just gonna go real quick. This one is located in Zul'Drak, and I start here at around level 74. When you reach level 77, you could always head to the Storm Peaks. Here there's a cave, and outside the cave you can farm these for Eternal Water. There's also the same kind of monsters inside the cave, so make sure to also head in there. When you unlock Cold Weather Flying, so the ability to start flying in Northrend, then you could always head up here in Sholazar Basin. Here you can farm a lot of different Eternals, including Eternal Water. Another great location takes place in Wintergrasp. If you farm at this water environment, also make sure to track herbs and veins, because there's a high chance that you will find some at this location. There's even yet another spot in Berian Thunder for low level farming. You can find it right here. This is also the same location for Eternal Fire, so if you don't like to farm more Eternal Water, you could always swap to Eternal Fire. Next up is Eternal Shadow farming, and in Wrath of the Lich King there sadly isn't that many great farms for this Eternal. Therefore, I'm only gonna share two spots. The first spot takes place in Dragonblight in this cave. These creatures has a chance to drop 1 to 2 Crystallized Shadow. If you prefer a higher level spot, then you could always swap to Wintergrasp. The drop chance for Crystallized Shadow is way higher at these creatures compared to the other ones that I showed you before. But like I mentioned, there sadly isn't that many great locations for farming Crystallized Shadow. The only way to optimize your farm is to pick up mining, because when you mine Serenite, there's a chance that you get Crystallized Shadow. Next up is Eternal Air, and the first spot that I recommend you to check out is in Grizzly Hills. Right here you can easily start farming from around level 72 and all the way up to level 77. This location usually isn't that crowded, and I like it a lot because there's so many different kind of these creatures, so you can easily continue your farm without any downtime when you're leveling. When you get your flying mount, you could always head to Sholazar Basin. You can fly to this location and farm Eternal Air, or well, Crystallized Air from these creatures. Another high level spot takes place in Wintergrasp. Down here at the south, you can continue your farm. If all the locations is already super crowded, then you could always farm other Eternals in Wintergrasp. These you can then sell or trade with other people and try to get Eternal Air from the auction house. Another option would be to be an engineer, because as an engineer in Wrath of the Lich King, you can use the Mote Extractor from TBC. This will allow you to extract different clouds, and from these clouds you do for example get eternal air. If you would like to know all the spawn locations for the clouds, but also how to get the Mote Extractor, make sure to check out my eternal farming for Wrath of the Lich King. Next up is eternal earth farming, and there are so many different locations for this kind of farm, and I will share all of them with you. Therefore, with so many spawns, the price for this might not be that expensive, and therefore I usually don't farm eternal earth, but instead I stick to some of the more expensive ones, like air, fire or water. If you don't have flying mount to reach the first location that I show you here on Shoulderside Basin, then you could always just go to this location right next to, or well, right below. You can also farm crystallized earth at low level, for example here in Howling Fjord, from these elementals. But like I've mentioned a couple of times, lower level monsters usually have a lower drop chance compared to higher level ones. In Howling Fjord you can also kill the different kind of golems. For example, these iron runes has a chance to drop crystallized earth. If you prefer to kill some creatures that is a bit higher level, then you could always come to WOTLK. Right next to the flight point you can start farming crystallized earth. In Grizzly Hills there's also a location for this kind of farm. But at this location there's also some dwarves. These doesn't have a chance to drop what you're farming for, but you will have to take care of them because they're at the same area as these golems. However, it's a decent farm and you can also farm other Eternals at this location. If you mainly prefer to just farm the golems, then you could always head a bit more north up here, because here it's way easier to just kill the golems without pulling anything else. The last lower level location takes place in WOTLK. Here I usually farm at around 74, 75 or 76, but sadly there isn't that many monsters here. The last location that I use for farming Eternal Earth takes place in Wintergrasp. But like I mentioned, Eternal Earth isn't really that expensive, and therefore I usually stick to another Eternal when I'm leveling or when I try to farm gold. An Eternal that will grant you a bit more gold is the Eternal Life. Crystallized life you for example get from different creatures, but you can also collect this when you're doing herbalism in Wrath of the Lich King. When you reach level 74, you could always head to WOTLK and find these mossy rampagers. These has a fairly decent chance to drop crystallized life. In the middle of Shoulderside Basin, you can find these creatures. These has a fairly decent chance to drop crystallized life. Also make sure to pick up the different quests in this area, because a lot of these quests will tell you to kill monsters at this area. So that way you will gain a bit more experience, but also gold when you farm these. My favorite spot, especially if I play a class with AoE, takes place in Wintergrasp. Up here there are so many different creatures, and you can easily pull around 10 of these if you play a mage or a protection paladin. But because of this, then this area is usually also really crowded. Remember that you could always level up engineering, make the Mote Extractor, and then farm clouds. This is such a great way to farm gold, especially if you're one of the first level 80s on the server.